Hello, and welcome to an Ooma Office onboarding video. This is our third video tutorial in this series. It will go over how to change the user settings for your employees and extensions. These settings include voicemails, managing devices, login information, and much more. In the video description, you will find a link to the first video of this playlist if you would like to start over from the beginning. We begin here on the same page as the admin login, office.ooma.com. You will see that we are selecting the for users side of things. This is where your employees can go to log in case they want to change their own settings for their extension. They would put in the same main phone number as the admin one, their extension number, and their password. We will, however, be going over the admin side of things for their user settings today. I will make a separate video in the future regarding the actual settings for your employees at a later time. So we log in to our account as the admin. In the setup assistant, I've created a new user so we can set them up and see what they will see from their side of things. So as the account admin, you go and configure the user. You can call this one Billy. And then you would put in their email for their actual email. So for this one, we will use onboarding@ooma.com since I have that opened in a new tab, and we will see the welcome email that they receive once their extension is set up. I save their settings, and in just a second, Billy should receive his welcome email from Ooma. So we've completed this. We can close out of the setup assistant for now, and you'll see here I've received an email with my extension settings. So Billy, from the admin side of things, has been set up under user 1005. Let me reload the page so it loads his name, Billy 1005, and he received an email letting him know he has a direct phone number, which is the 7602 number here, which should be reflective of his extension here. So on Billy's side of things, he can click Get Started Now, and this will open a link where he can create his own password for his user login. And so this is where Billy can use that password to log in to the office.ooma.com website. Same location where you log in as the admin, but as the user. So he would type in his password, it would create his account login, type in a default one, which we will then use on the later video when I'm going over the user's point of view for this. All right, so we are back on the admin portal. At this time, Billy has created his login for his own user extension. However, if for any reason you need to change the password or reset it for him, you can do so under his extension settings. So I opened up the user settings. You will see at the bottom, you can click on Reset or Manually Override Password to create a new password for Billy. If I select Manually Override Password, I can then type in a new password for him. A reset password would send him an email to the email in this column here, as well as the Send Welcome Email option. You can also, on this basic screen, change the first and last name for the user. On the numbers screen, you can change the extension number. Our extension numbers for the Ooma Basic service range from 1000 to 1199. So you have 200 extension numbers to choose from. For Ooma Pro and Pro Plus, you can put any 4-digit extension number you wish. The phone number here will be the direct phone number. Each user will have their own direct phone number. And if you want, you can also change the outgoing caller ID to be any one of your Ooma numbers. So if we want to change the user's main number to be the main number, I can type in the last 4 digits of my main number, 8317, and it will pop up. We can then select it as our main outgoing number for this user. And finally, the area code for 7-digit dialing will be the same as the area code for the number. That way, you only have to type in the last 7 digits if you want to dial a local call. Under the Devices screen, we will have access to view all of the user's devices. Here, usually you will be able to see desk phones, you'll be able to see external lines, mobile apps, desktop apps, all of that. Right now, I only have a mobile app set up, but let's say I want to set up an external line. This can be a cell phone number or any other phone number. You would type in the phone number that it sends the calls to. Require key press to accept call means that when this number receives a call, it will let them know it is a forwarded call from Ooma and to press 1 to accept the call. This way, let's say this is a cell phone number and you don't know if it's a business call or a personal call, that person will know to answer the call as a business call. If, on the other hand, you want it to show the company number on the cell phone for the incoming call, you can select that as well. Original caller number will keep the caller ID the same for the person calling in. So now we've added an external line to this user. This means that when a call comes in, it will ring both their mobile app and their cell phone number. Now this would be doubling up on the same phone, so realistically this wouldn't be a normal use case. However, let's say you want to set up an external phone number for after hours purposes, you could select this. Now, the other option here is to disable certain phones. So instead of completely removing the phone, let's say I have this as a forwarding line for when I'm on vacation, I could disable it at some times and it would save the data here so that I can re-enable it at a later date. Right now it says it enables this user by default to have the mobile app since I set him up as a mobile user. However, for Ooma Pro, you would also get access to the desktop app. For voicemail, here we can choose what type of greeting the voicemail gets. So there's the default voicemail greeting, which will just say that the person at the extension number 1005 is not available. You can upload your own greeting. This would have to be an MP3 or a WAV file. You would choose one from your computer. You could also do a text-to-speech greeting, very similar to the virtual receptionist we went over in the last video. You simply type out, "Thank you for calling. Please leave a message." And then the person would hear this message and would be able to leave a message. So read out very similarly to the virtual receptionist. It's the same text-to-speech technology. So here we can listen to it.
"Thank you for calling. Please leave a message."
Here, there's a voicemail pin. If you want, as the admin, you can go in and change that voicemail pin. It's up to you. The voicemail setup is complete means that when the user is first set up, when they first call into their voicemail, it will ask them to record their voicemail greeting. And so if you want them to just use the text-to-speech greeting, I recommend selecting voicemail setup is complete. That way they won't get that prompt to record their own voicemail. Skip default instructions for callers. This means that when the voicemail message is read, afterwards there will be a quick announcement letting people know to leave a message after the tone. If you don't want that announcement, you can select this to disable the voicemail instructions. The last two settings here are for voicemail to email notifications. So if you want or any user to receive their voicemails through to email whenever somebody leaves them a voicemail. You can select this. You can also, with Ooma Pro, select voicemail transcription, meaning that attached to the voicemail there will be a transcription of what our system heard as the voicemail typed out as part of the email. And then finally, what do you want to have the system do after the voicemail is sent to email? Some people who only want voicemails to email will select to delete the message from their system. That way your voicemail never gets full and simply sends the voicemail straight to your email. The other option is to keep the messages new. That way, when Billy would come into the office, he would see a blinking light on his phone letting him know that he got a new voicemail, even though it already also sent to his email. So that would double up a little bit, but it's not the end of the world. And then mark messages saved means that it keeps the voicemail stored on our system, but it doesn't give a blinking light. That way he'll only get the notification to his email that he received a voicemail. So call handling here. This is where we can set up how long we want the devices to ring for this user. So right now, I do not want to forward the call. I want both of the phones that we had set up earlier to ring. So I would select ring all devices simultaneously. If you ever do want to do a straightforward without necessarily using the external line here that we had set up, you can do a straightforward here. And then you would put in external forwarding number, and then you can type out the forwarding number you want to forward to. And then we select here how long we want it to ring. You can go all the way up to 3 minutes of ringing if you want, 180 seconds, or as short as just 2 rings at the very top, 10 seconds. And then what happens afterwards? So let's say this user doesn't pick up. Do we want it to send the call to maybe the virtual receptionist? We could do another extension, choose the auto attendant we had set up in our previous video, and then so whenever it would go through and Billy would receive a call, it would then send the call to the auto attendant. We can also send the call to another voicemail. So if you only have one voicemail for your whole company, you can select that. So we could set up that Bob has the only voicemail in our company. And then finally, if you don't want any voicemail, you can always select busy tone. Finally, we have the features. There's a couple of them here that are enabled for our Ooma Basic. The first of which is virtual fax. Creating a virtual fax means that this user will be able to send and receive faxes. When he receives faxes, it will send a fax PDF attachment to his email, the email that we set up under the Basic tab here. Conference Bridge is a feature so that when you'll have a phone number here, when a call comes into that phone number, it will say, "Thank you for calling the conference. Please enter the conference ID." So we'll set up a conference bridge just to quickly show you what that looks like. Basically, each person at your company can have their own conference bridge ID. And so that means that when a call comes in, they can have their own conference room here. And then finally, the last permissions on the user side of things are the internal extensions and, domestic and international calls if you only want that. Or if you only want the phone to be able to dial to the internal extensions, you could also do that. And then I will quickly go over the conference bridge. So the conference bridge, like I said, it's its own phone number, and since it is a feature, it's at no additional cost, even though it's a separate phone number. And so we set it up on extension 1000. So when people call into this phone number, the 8372, they would be connected to the conference bridge. When they are connected to the conference bridge, the system asks them to put in the bridge ID for the conference they're trying to join. Now, I can go in and I can change the bridge ID to any two. So the smallest we could do is a 2-digit bridge ID. To 6-digit is the longest that we can do. So I will leave it as 22 for Billy. So when people call in and want to join Billy's conference, they would dial 22, and then they would be connected to everybody else who calls in and is joining conference 22. All right. Finally, the virtual fax. So as the admin, you can send faxes through the dashboard. We went over this quickly in the first video, but what you would do is you would select the recipient fax number. So if you have a fax that you're sending a fax to, you would type it in here, and then you would choose who's sending the fax. Since you're the admin, you have access to everybody's faxes. Billy would only be able to send from his direct fax. And then finally, you can choose the PDF file that you want to send out. So I've uploaded a PDF file here. I can send out the fax. I don't know if this is a real fax number, so I will not do that. But I would just click send fax here, and then it would send the fax to the fax number that I've typed in up here. You can have up to 10 recipients if you want. So you can add more fax numbers up here. And Billy will have something very similar on his side of things, which we will go over in the next video.